All right. So welcome to Spatialand. This is our second episode. We're super excited to have you. And hi back there. I think somebody else just got portaled in by mistake, but okay. I hope you stay. Why not? Anyway, so this is Spatialand. It's a new show, and we're talking about all the content across the spatial sphere. The idea is to cover all the events, concerts, and experiences, and we're going to start off by catching up on the news. We really hope this is going to be an interactive community, so we're going to post a Discord for everybody to share some of the stuff that they've been watching. We're also going to share the meetup space where it's called XR Creatives. You can just look it up, and I send out a weekly newsletter about stuff that's going on in the spatial verse. You might get invitations that way. You'll also get information, and you can also ask us questions in that. So either the Discord or the XR Creatives, and I really would love to hear from you about your journey in the spatial verse. So, and we look forward to hearing from you later in the show. But to start off, we want to maybe give them the agenda. We're going to start off with some news and some observations about what's been happening in the world. Then we're going to do some deep dives in some of the events that we've been seeing over the past week. And we also have a special guest who will be joining us later. Her name is Julie Welsh. You can wave over there, Julie.
Julie Walsh.
Hey, everybody. Yeah, Julie Walsh. And then we're going to be reviewing the fabric of reality, untitled art online, and some future events. So I'm Catherine Henry, and co-hosted with Michael Barngrover.
Yeah, I thought we're going to introduce ourselves. So, I mean, I'm a developer and researcher of VR, and particularly collaboration in VR. So I do some research in Altspace, and I sometimes develop usually kind of like cultural heritage stuff. So I work at a university in Istanbul. That's a little bit about me. So I do shows with some other collaborators, and I organize a lot of events in VR.
Mm-hmm. And my name is Catherine Henry, and I had Palpable Media, and we're basically passionate about all things XR, but in particular, obviously, VR is really important. I myself am a trained VR filmmaker. I studied at the New York Film Academy, but my company, Palpable Media, takes people on, it advises company on XR marketing, events, and training. And so it's important to really understand what's happening out there in the spatial sphere, because this is the future of entertainment. And I'm here in LA, and I really feel that people really need to understand what's happening there, especially as this medium evolves and becomes much more sophisticated, to your point, and becomes, well, frankly, there's just so much interesting stuff happening, helping everyone navigate that, because that's not always so easy. So that's why we created the show.
Yeah, so let's just jump right into, you think?
Yeah.
We can go ahead and get into some quick hits of events that either Catherine and I have seen. The first one, I think, is Simulation Nation, which is actually something I know it's a regular event here in Altspace, and of course Altspace is where most of the regular events are. But Catherine, yeah, you talked a little bit about it with a couple of members of the audience, but for those who are joining now, tell us what you saw.
Okay, well, Simulation Nation, can everybody see the screen, first of all? In front of us?
Yep.
Okay, good. So Simulation Nation is basically a dev meetup, and it was very cool because they took us on an actual tour of a space that they had created. And it was amazing because you had 3 different levels, and it had all these like inside jokes about hackers. So if you get really close to some of the old school video games, you drop through the floor. There were realistic, really high render experiences, and it was really beautiful. It was done by Chris Wallace this week, and I'd like to invite him. If anybody knows him, please send him our way. We're going to try to find him and bring him on here. But it's an example of how world building is really taking off. And I know, Michael, you said that that's quite common in this spaces, but I feel like there are channels for everything. Just like on TV, you have a channel for like architecture or building houses, but we're seeing reblocks, we're seeing Fortnite. So I feel like it's an important trend going forward. What would you say?
I mean, I would say it's a requirement now. If you are a platform, you've got to have content creation tools, whether they're on the platform or whether, like in Altspace and Engage, you have to build it in Unity, and VRChat's another one like that. You build it outside the platform and you upload it into it. But you have to let people make, not just because it's good business. It's far cheaper to create content if you don't have to pay to create the content. You let other people do it. But at the same time, it's just people want to see what they want to see. And in order to do that, they got to make it. Someone's got to make that.
Someone's got to make it. Well, I have to say this was really sophisticated. I love going on this tour, and I really felt like that was something that, it's also kind of an extension of what we're trying to do by sending out invitations and meeting up. And we're going to talk about one of our meetups shortly. But let's move on to the other meetup that we had Wednesday. It was Museum of Other Realities. I couldn't get in, so we're going to defer to you, and then I'll tell you about my my challenge getting in.
Yeah, so Museum of Other Realities is one of these platforms that it's very heavy. It's been around longer than the Quest, so it's not designed to be light enough for a standalone PC. It's an art space, and they have a permanent collection. You can download it on Steam. It is not free, which is unusual for these types of platforms historically. Most of them are free. Particularly if they're social, but this one is not free, and it's because they don't want to. They kind of want to keep that barrier
They don't want
to
trolls, basically.
keep the trolls out. Yeah, because it's an art space. You're supposed to go in there and take everything quite seriously. But yeah,
not
the thing
seriously.
Is,
I mean, it's gorgeous and it's an art space, but they also don't want the trolls just to like take over. I think there's a difference. I think it's not exclusive in the way a lot of other art spaces could be conceived. Would you say?
I mean, yeah, they just want to cultivate a certain type of person who values it, who values the art enough to pay some nominal fee for it. But the thing is, though, is that platform historically was quite niche, so that wasn't a problem for that if you couldn't get into it with the Quest. But now it actually is becoming quite a challenge for a lot of people because we've had several festivals in the last few months. We've had RAM in there, we've had ConXR. And these are big-time XR art festivals that are using Museum of the Realities, Tribeca. So, and the thing is, now that people are aware of it, they want to go. And more people have Quest rather than Vive or Rift. And
I'm dying
it is creating
to see
a problem. You can get into it. If you have the Quest, though, you can get in. But as you, maybe you can explain. Yeah, explain what you've tried.
Okay, so this is the thing. Quest was developed. The Museum of Other Realities was developed with money by the HTC Vive, which is great. I mean, we want them to get lots of money, and HTC has plenty. But and it was like one of the highest quality platforms. This is well before the Quest was developed. But now with the Quest, you have to tether it with a special cord that you have to order on Amazon. I got the wrong one. I got a second one. Anyway, I downloaded it on Steam. The Museum of Other Realities is available on Steam, but it wouldn't kind of mesh with Oculus. And then when I tried to upload it to enter it, I got an overlay in the Oculus. And then when I tried to upload it into Oculus, it said failed. And it said, like, this is a catastrophe. I've never seen that as a warning label. Yeah. But anyway, it's super exciting to see. But this is another level of like the frustration of being able to access all these different platforms, right? I mean, the challenge is being able to access platforms that are, and even the functionality, the movements are different, which is like small, but you find yourself in a place and you don't even know how to get around. So I feel like these are the kinds of speed bumps we get to getting up and going, because if it's not on Quest, which is evolving as the new sort of captive world, then that's going to be problematic. It's like if you have, in the days when Apple had their apps, but you can't access it if you don't have an Apple phone. So it's getting a bit like that. It's getting a little bit frustrating, but I'm hoping that we get beyond that. Anyway, so that was my frustration, but it's supposed to be gorgeous, and the fabric of reality, how was it?
We'll talk about the fabric of reality a bit in more detail, because I think it relates to when you have trouble getting into a platform, it raises the bar for what now will satisfy you. Because you're like, all right, I just spent 15, 30 minutes, an hour, maybe a couple days trying to get into something. And maybe I paid some money. And at that point,
sure it's gonna be worth it.
If that experience of that event just doesn't really wow you, it's easy to kind of like just dismiss that platform or dismiss that event. And that's unfortunate, because sometimes the events are great. They're not amazing. They're worth going, but they're worth going if it's reasonably convenient. And so I do think that, because we organize a lot of events, and even in VR chat, we'll talk a little bit about what we tried to do there. Yeah. Like, people had trouble getting into VR chat, and we just wanted to have a chat, literally. Just come in, hang out with us. We're going to be in this space, museum
but
space.
But there's a reason why that didn't work, and we're going to talk about that in a second. But let's just we'll go to the VR chat room. Mm-hmm. So that's a good segue. The VR chat, I feel like, there's a lot happening there, and it's interesting because the more time I spend, the more I obviously understand it, but also the more I appreciate, it for what it is. And yesterday, it's super crowded, and this is the thing, like, there are many, many layers of worlds. So I went into, like, the the chat room, and it's also the chat. Like chat means like a pussycat. And as you mentioned to me earlier, I had no idea that VR chat was the sexy channel. Did anybody know that? Just raise hands. Okay, you knew. Okay, so Veg No Legs knew, but I had no idea that it was the sexy channel. That this is where people go to have virtual sex. I didn't know that.
Well, not just that, but that is an option. But I
Okay,
would
well,
say
I
most people
heard
don't
people
go in there.
joking about it. Okay, well,
Yeah,
so anyway, I went to this rain room, and there are several versions of the rain room. It turns out, like different takes on the rain room. And
yeah.
for once, there's a parallel universe. It looks like there are 700 people in the room, but I got there was nobody there. So everyone's having like separate rain room parties, I guess. But rain rooms seem to be a common theme. And also, I noticed that it's wonderfully soothing to find this space in spatial fear that was just to myself. I didn't have the cat video that they have there, but it was a really
But I
beautiful,
mean,
very contemplative
the,
space. And I thought it was a nice reprieve from when you're jumping around worlds to be able to come back and find spaces like this.
would you take anybody there, Catherine, or would you always go alone, having been there? Like for
I
people,
would
like
go to this
how would you
because
look at it?
for me, I just loved the transformative power of being on this big open veranda. You know, many of us have been closed in our respective homes, or maybe you like want a quiet night in. Maybe you had a busy week, but there's something really beautiful about like losing yourself in VR, but not necessarily always being social. And so I know that
Yeah.
we have like our certain spaces. Like if I go to big screen and I sit there, I just love I don't have alone time in VR, even from social VR.
Well, I gotta say that for those who haven't been to a room like this, rain in VR is really quite convincing. You know, it's a very soothing. You have if you have the right balance of audio and the visuals. I really liked it. It's kind of a gimmicky room, but it's a gimmick that really works. I like it. I recommend anybody to give it a try.
Yeah,
But there's a lot of relaxation rooms in VR chat. Like a VR chat again has this reputation for being kind of manic and wild, but there's really a lot of very reflective, very relaxation oriented rooms in there that aside from the rain room. So VR chat's everything. You know, good and
yeah.
bad. It's really everything. So it's worth really taking a dive in on it.
Yeah. I think to your point, though, I mean, we're talking about like parallel universes. Well, we'll get to the parallel universe that we went to, but I mean, because there's so many parallel events happening, you might not realize the depth of experiences that are happening. And that's why I also want to get some more access to some of those parallel universes and parallel experiences. So if any of you in this audience have connections of people who are regularly hosting events in parallel worlds and they want to build up traction, please let us know because we'd be happy to organize a tour or invite the group. I think that would be really kind of fun for us to collectively explore and each one of us kind of cultivate their own space and their own world.
Let me just move on there. There we go. All right. So now this was one that you saw, and I was actually surprised because you didn't tell me you were seeing this. So
Yeah,
you saw a
I've been
comedy
just
show.
cruising different spaces the other day, because I'm trying to cram in and like trying to see as many things as possible. I did sign up for, speaking of contemplative spaces, some like Zen, like reflective meditation thing. I'll let you know next week. But this week I saw the failed to render comedy, and it was three different. Well, I saw the last three performers. Some were better than others. It's like any other comedy show. But what's interesting was I'm standing in a room with lots of people, and there's a lot of laughter. And you realize these are people like you in the audience from all around the world. And we're just sitting there, and at some point, this guy makes all these jokes about being in VR and making comedy in VR and how he doesn't really have a social life and how he's, there's this in real life, but like, and then he just makes like inside jokes about being in VR that are just super funny. And it was so appropriate, and he was so funny, and it was like, it really felt like I was in a real life comedy club. And it made so much sense in VR. And you see a lot of improv is popular in VR too.
Yeah. And Altspace, and well, actually, Altspace and both VRChat and Altspace facilitate this. Rec Room wanted to. Yeah, they had space for it, but I don't know that how many people really make use of it in there. But I don't know. They might be. But would you, what's curious is that, you go to a comedy show a lot of times, and either you go to see a headliner, but if it's not a headliner, not someone famous that you already know you like them, you're kind of
Mm-hmm.
hoping to find a performer who connects with you. And it is
Yeah.
curious that now, and not now, I mean, this is not new. This is new to us because we haven't attended it before. But, these types of comedy shows, people in VR talking about things that are relevant, that are part of the VR life. I
It's,
work alone, so I actually am very keen to go in and try it because I don't work with a lot of people who use VR. So I'm missing out on these gripes, being able to make fun of the gripes that we have. So I'm happy that you
well,
checked that out.
yeah, it was not just that, but it was also pandemic, and like I think that we all share a lot of different things, and it was just really fun. The interesting thing before we move on is also their business model is that they can allow you to tip these guys, and they also encourage you to stream live, and so it also helps these guys get publicity. So, I mean, seeing like stars in the real world like Reggie Watts and other people kind of migrate to VR, these are the kind of platforms where I can see this going, where people can even
Hmm.
test out new material and do other things. So I would love to see this continue, but definitely check it out if you got nothing, some spare time on a Friday.
Let's move on then. Let's see. We got now, yes, so this was the event we did on Wednesday. This was a zero event
Yeah.
with Spatialand.
Uh-huh.
Yeah,
Do
so
you want
all
to? You
right,
want
so
to?
your sound effects make it clear to the audience that you were not incredibly satisfied with the experience. First, tell the audience why you were not satisfied with the
Well,
event
why
that
don't
I
you tell them what
organized.
it was about? Tell them what it was about, and then I'll give my review.
Hold on, I took the microphone out of my headset. 1 second. So I didn't get to
All
hear
right.
whatever witty remark you just closed with, but I'm
I
going to
just
go ahead
said
and give you
tell them
credit for a good one.
tell them what you think it's about. I mean,
Yeah.
basically, the Ancient Art Museum is in VRChat. It's
Yep.
a permanent collection. You can go visit it anytime, free of charge. You don't have to
It's a
fly across
public
the world.
it's a public room made by a creator named Adi. Don't know how you pronounce it, but yeah, it's a good public room. So it's just it's a really going back to talking about like relaxation in like the rain room and in other rooms in VR chat. This is a really very relaxing place to bring some people and to just chat. There's some benches, there's some quirky little things, little Easter eggs inside there to discover. But I actually
Tell me about
I'm
the
quite
Easter eggs.
taken with it.
Tell me about the Easter eggs and why, because they were really adorable. I liked a lot of them.
Well, it says don't touch, in a couple places, not everywhere, but in a couple places it says don't touch, which is one of those dead giveaways in VR and in gaming in general that you should do the opposite of whatever the signage tells you. And so you trigger a different animation depending on whether it's a vase or it's a statue or something like this. So and some of them are quite cute. So a nice little
Yeah.
touch. I like it. I recommend it for anyone who wants to give it a try. I think it's quite well known, but if you haven't tried it, but
Well, the effects were really good. The effects were really good.
it was not the most successful event because
All right. Well, I want to agree with you first of all that the effects were really good, and it was like beautiful because a lot of these things have been collected from all around the world, and you have the sense of really being in a museum. It's dark, it's contemplative, but it's also curated. I thought quite well. I mean, I'm not a curator, but it looked like any other classical museum, and it was kind of
we
awesome.
have one here. We have a
Yeah,
curator.
so that's our curator. But then this is the other thing. I felt it was unsuccessful because you wanted to have it in one of these parallel universes as opposed to everyone just rocking up, where you're going to have like the crazy, looks like small gremlin running around like this and waving at you, or like we had a monster come in and it was like it tried to eat us and then it walked away, and because we just ignored it. But that's VR chat, right? And like I feel like that if you want the public experience, and this is the equivalent of going to the Met, you're gonna have crazy. You just are, and you're gonna. I'm from New York, so you would have lots of people taking pictures and posing and stuff in museums and Instagram or whatever. That's normal. I don't think you should make it so hard to find people because then you lose half the audience getting there. And we did lose a lot of people, so I was a little disappointed because I wanted to make sure that we keep this inclusive thing going.
Yeah, so to clarify a little bit, is that I made it a private event rather than a public event. And in a public event, obviously anyone can just join in. But in a private one, you have to be friends with someone who's in that room. And so I had provided instructions to that effect. But VR chat, if you're new to it, it's still not something that you necessarily pick up easily, how to find people, how to join rooms and stuff like that. The UI, I know some people really like from my research, but I myself kind of find the UI a bit, it should be tricky for pure beginners and stuff. So Next time we may do it differently. We
Okay.
might have a public event, and and I just may moderate it. But yeah,
Well, I
that was
just feel like
that event.
if you're going to have a guide, it's like if you're going for an art tour in any museum or any place in the world, there's going to be a group of people, and they're all just going to be a couple people on the fringe listening. And I'm guilty of doing that myself because I always want to hear what the docents are saying, and I think that's okay because it's also kind of like the whole purpose of this is to encourage, to foster discussion. I know that they can be crazy and there can be a lot of gremlins in there, but I think
That's
you
a,
can always.
yeah. Yeah.
I know.
I mean,
I
we'll give it
know.
a try. We'll give it a try. We're all adults. If we
Okay.
get humped by, some unusual avatar, we just move on with our life. So, all right. So now let's get on to
And
the
it just
big
adds
event.
to the show.
The big event that we're going to cover. We're going to cover two big events
I know.
actually, but this is maybe the biggest in the VR space. Because this one took place in Museum of Other Realities. This was the Fabric of Reality, which was an event organized with Verizon. They have a team, they have a creative technology team, and they worked with 3 artists, and I'll share a little bit more specific information here. They had 3 artists, 3 designers. I think maybe I moved back a little bit. And they paired these artist designers with the people who were actually going to make this for them. Typically, it seemed like they and I'll show you if we move on here a few examples. So these are the 3 different, like the bottom picture is all 3 in a row. So it's a fashion show. It's ostensibly this is a fashion show, and maybe one of the first truly VR fashion experiences. So you go into Museum of Realities through the front door, the typical door, and you follow a carpet, which is quite nice. Again, Museum of the Realities, the architecture is one of the best features of it. The actual art inside we can have a debate about, and we have with some of our friends and colleagues. But the space is nice, and so you go in, you follow this I think a purple carpet as I remember, and then you come down and there's this stage here, this bottom image, and you have the 3, and there's up on the wall the description of what the piece is aspiring to represent, what its purpose is, and so you see it, this demonstration, which are these things. You see this girl with the black and the ribbons. You see this other woman in this in the other image here with all the different colors. She's in like a bubble, and they take very, very different approaches. So even though they're all 3, I believe they were all 3 tilt brush, but these were tilt brush. Some other parts of it I don't think were tilt brush, actually. I think they were using something like medium and some other tools.
It looks
creative
kind of
tools.
magical. Was it magical? How would you describe the environment? I look at this.
No.
I really want to see it. I really do.
No, I actually thought, so the presentation is you're in a room in a museum. So the presentation is quite grounded, the initial presentation. But then there are portals where you go into a world that is created by each of the artists, where the actual piece, in 2 of them, the actual design garment does not appear in the world. The world is, again, a bigger exploration of what the artist is wanting to explore. I'm not an art curator, nor am I particularly well informed about art. So from my perspective, it was less than I expected. It was less fashion oriented than I expected. And the presentation, the things themselves were competent. They were fine. I mean, some of them were quite good, actually. Some of the individual, like the models were quite interesting, quite well done. And this is I'm going to show you what when you get inside.
It looks like Dear Angelica. Was it like Dear Angelica at all? Because the one in the top right kind of looks like that. Oh, this is amazing.
I mean, it's worth seeing. I would say that it's worth. I was not.
If you can get in, if I can ever manage to get in.
If you can get in. Some like certain elements of it I found quite interesting. This bubbly yellow bubble tunnel into this grassy world that this one artist made. I quite like that transition. I did like that. This other one on the other side that has more of like a super colorful image. And I'm not sure if everyone who's joined new may not be able to see this. because remember, if you join late,
Uh,
it's not showing.
right, if you
So,
join late, you can't see the images. Do you want to reboot? I mean, I'm okay if you do.
well, I
Look,
can.
I,
I
I
mean,
think
let me.
I wanted to ask you a
Oh,
question, though, because this is the thing,
yeah.
Michael, as you reboot, I'm just going to ask you this question. A lot of people design for 3D and 2D, and their design thinking really shows in the experience. Did you feel that this is a 3D experience, or did you get the experience that it's like 2D? Because,
No, it's
anything like,
3D. No, it's definitely
okay,
3D. So this is my maybe arrogance. I feel like these works would have benefited from more time. The fact that you have an artist and a designer who's being paired for this purpose with someone who's going to actually execute and create,
uh-huh,
I felt like, I mean, to be honest, in two of them, it seemed like that was relatively clean. Like I feel like probably that was effectively translated from the artist to execution. But this other one, the one that's got a lot of the wild colors, it looks like a standard tilt brush, but it's so busy. And many of the textures are not really mapped well. They look like they have some issues with some of the textures. It's the one that's actually explicitly fashion. So it
hmm,
works in that sense that it's clearly it's a catwalk, but
yeah.
I feel like it just could be cleaner. So that's my take on it. Is it's worth seeing, but going back to what we said before, like if you have a lot of trouble getting into it, it can, you should keep your expectations in line with it's three artists with three specific tilt brush-ish worlds, and
Yeah.
and be prepared to look at it in that sense.
I feel like everybody
So
thinks they're a great tilt brush artist, though. I mean, that's kind of the concern is like everybody feels like they're good at tilt brush and everything. No, you don't think so? We'll have a conversation about that later. But I mean, I haven't seen this. I'm super excited to see it. So thumbs up then.
I mean, how am I going to do this? Let's see. A thumb in the middle. It's worth seeing. I don't say that I was not particularly impressed with it, but thumbs middle.
So is it
Yeah.
thumbs middle because like we're in an important place right now, or I mean, you're saying the same thing. We're going to open up to questions shortly. We're just going to like run through the rest of the program. But would you say
It's
that
worth seeing. It's worth seeing. So
okay.
I will say
I
that
think
it's
that's
worth
a lot of
seeing.
what we're seeing, though. I mean, even with Tomorrowland and other things, we're seeing a lot of really great initiatives, but, obviously they can be taken further. So good to hear. What's next?
Yeah, what's next? This
Who's
is now
going to bring
actually where we want to welcome our guest, a special guest, Julie Walsh, to the stage.
Julie, come on up.
And Julie is
Welcome. Let's give
quite
her a warm round of applause.
an esteemed
Hi, everybody.
curator. So Julie, let me go ahead and do this intro while you make your way up to the stage.
Julie, thank you so much
So-
for joining us. I know
so
she's had
Julie
some
is
problems with her things that'll take a minute.
Julie is a Chicago-based curator with a focus on contemporary Asian art and immersive technologies. So she was the founder and director of Walsh Gallery in Chicago from 93 to 2011, which exhibited challenging work from Asia in all mediums. She has curated numerous exhibitions in her own space, and in others around the world. Since 2016, she has focused on the fine art applications of immersive technologies. She's presented
Fantastic.
at international venues, including the following: the Art Days, Europe, VRAM, Virtual Worlds, Laval Virtuel, and the School of Art Institute in Chicago. So she's got some upcoming projects in the MR exhibition in Recto Verso in Laval, and she's a co-curator of the, is it Busan in Korea?
Busan.
I'm not sure.
Busan International Film Festival.
Awesome.
Yeah. So welcome, Julie.
Welcome.
It's a pleasure to have you.
Yay.
So tell us, Julie, tell us a little bit about what, I'll get my hands right. So tell us about this untitled art online.
Well, first, what I'd love to do is find out about my audience, since you all have heard a little bit about me. Can I see a show of hands of who's ever been to an art fair before? Okay, so a couple of people have. Okay, 3, 4. Okay, great. So I'm here to talk to you about the very first 3D art fair. I did do some research, Michael, and I couldn't find anybody else that had done this. So it's a collaboration with a company called Artlink, and it's called Untitled. And if you want to go check it out, today is the last day. It's actually still on. And in fact, they even have a live event tour going on that you can sign up for in Zoom.
Oh, that's cool.
So the art fair, really, as you can see from this picture, if you want to come down and take a better look, feel free. It's really mimicking the architectural formula of what does an art fair look like, to the point where it's kind of funny because Art Basel is a very big thing in Miami Beach, and they've gone around and they've actually have windows in the art fair where you can look out and actually see South Beach.
Untitled is part of Art Basel. Sorry, we want to just mention that to the crowd. Untitled is affiliated with Art Basel.
Oh, okay, that would explain why. So, anyway, so you go into the art fair, and there's all of these white walls and different size spaces, and so dealers typically could pay anything from 10,000 to 80 or 90,000 or even more to have an actual in real life booth at one of these art fairs. And I don't know what the scales, what the price scale point were for these particular booths. So you go through, and the UI experience is you basically hit the arrow bars and you go forward or you go back to move around the space. And some of the dealers, a couple of them have painted their background, their walls to make their art look a certain way. The type of art exhibited ranges from photos to paintings. There were a couple of sculptures, and there were some video pieces. And the price point was everything from $600 to about $195,000. So, and that's quite different from some of the online art fairs that are just website based, which are just flat images, where they were actually able to sell in that format up to $2.5 million. So people were buying art unseen just from a photo. So this is taking it to the next step where there's actually a 3D environment. Now, for me, what I really missed out in, having ran a gallery for 18 years and have been a very active participant of the international art fair scene, is being able to actually interact with anyone, because there was nobody there all the times I went. And also, usually the dealer would be sitting in the booth. And so if you had a question, whether you were a longtime collector or you were just going to look at art for the first time, you could go up and have a really interesting conversation with the dealer. And so
that's a really good point.
They did have an AI a chat box function where if you spent a long time in a particular booth, you get a text from the gallery dealer saying, "Hey, I'd like to connect with you. What's the best way? Do you want to talk by phone or by text or by email?" But I really did miss the all of the social aspects that are usually go along with being in an art fair. And then the format, you could look at for artworks, you could look up artists, you could look up tours, and their tours again were not social.
But can we ask, actually, there's an important question, which is, because you're describing the UI, and is this currently a VR experience to your knowledge?
Or to your belief?
I hate to tell you this, but your audio completely broke up and I didn't hear the question.
Oh, okay. So is this a VR experience? Because it's marketed as a VR art fair.
Is this a VR experience? So this is interesting. It is marketed as a virtual reality experience, and it is actually not at all. It's just a 3D version. It is very international. There are galleries from around the world. It's very similar. The type of art there is very similar to art that you would see in other art fairs in different places. And it did have a live events section. There is a tour going on now, actually, for the next hour and a half. But the way they did their tours is by Zoom. And then I'm imagining the facilitator is screen sharing. And then they're having that type of interaction. And I think it would be so much more dynamic if it was more like the social media platform. Like you all could come with me and I could talk to you about art and we could go walking through the art fair. I think that would be a lot more fun.
Julie, did you have the impression, like, I looked at this, and Michael, I opened this up to you as a developer. I look at this, and it's really meant for the armchair collector. I mean, I used to attend a lot of these events. I know, like, the head of Untitled and the head of Art Basel, because I lived in Switzerland, and we'd go around to all these fairs around the world, and it was a lot of fun. The social aspect is a driver, because a lot of us who are collectors would buy well before you even it gets there, or we put a hold on something, and we've made that connection. So it's almost like there are always the casual people come up, but the committed collectors have already been like really, really heavily marketed. On the other hand, this is where a lot of these art galleries, not the galleries themselves, but also it's a raison d'etre of the conference itself, right? But the thing is, like, going around this, it was an empty experience, to your point, and it was like made for the phone. I felt like it wasn't VR because you couldn't see. Could you see it in the headset? I don't know. I mean, that's the whole thing with the virtual versus
No, we
virtual
tried.
events.
Michael and I both went together, and we were all excited because I was like, "Oh, it's going to be awesome!
It would be cool.
There's this VR art fair. Let's go check it out." And then we got there, and Michael couldn't get in, I couldn't get in, and there was one VR artwork, but you could only access it through an Oculus.
Yeah.
And I had an HTC Vive, and Michael had.
It's really interesting.
We were not able to do that.
It's really interesting too, Julie, that you say this because I mean, we'll also have to raise a question about why looking only at the assets. I mean, if we're going to do this, also we can start selling 3D and virtual assets in AR. So I got the impression, Michael, what do you think, that this was done kind of quickly? Would you say? Because it didn't seem very sophisticated in terms of the UI and the render. I don't know. Maybe it's just me because they had to import a lot of stuff probably from each one of the galleries.
Yeah, there could be, from my experience, and Julie and I, we liked the fact that the art was quite well scanned. So as you got close to her, kind of like a Sketchfab, kind of like one of these photogrammetry platforms. As you got closer, there was quite a bit of detail. It wasn't amazing, but it was good. It was good detail. So there might be some really good, management, asset management back end.
Yeah.
But yeah, certainly the experience part, the front end of it is quite simple. You could do this in hubs, and already you'd have a social VR functionality, and you'd have the ability, conceivably, to get up to these levels. Now, could you do this size? That's what I mean. Like, the back end might be quite sophisticated because there's a lot of pieces here. There's a lot of dynamic loading and unloading of different levels of detail models here. And maybe inside of hubs, that's just not what it would be great at. But when I look at this, I'm just thinking, why don't you do it in hubs? Obviously, maybe, again, they want to own it and they want to sell it as a service, so maybe that's why they did it. But I would expect that we're going to see a lot of these in the next few years, a lot of things that look very much like this.
I think we want to make sure that we get audience questions, so maybe we'll run quickly to some of the upcoming events, because speaking of virtual and non-virtual, Burning Man is supposed to be happening now. I didn't get a chance to see it yesterday, but we certainly, we're going to check it out right after this. And so if you guys get a chance to check out Burning Man, please try to check it out. Again, like Untitled and like so many of these other things, Tomorrowland, you don't know if it's virtual, you can't find it online. A lot of times it's just actually just an online event. But it turns out you can experience Burning Man in VR. So we're going to talk about that next week. And in other news, the Wave.
Yeah, and the big news, yes, we have another big Wave concert. We had John Legend a few weeks ago, and now we got The Weeknd. Yeah.
I'm excited about the Wave and The Weeknd. It's funny because like the Wave, for the longest time, I would get them mixed up with the Wild. It's like the Wave, the Wild. The Wave is a platform that had the John Legend concert. We talked about this last time. 500,000 viewers. However, honestly, how many people in VR would you say, Max?
100 maybe 150, 200 could be.
I think it was like supposed to be 148, 150 the numbers. So it's technically not really done. Before it was done with Instagram, and this time Snap or no, it's last time it's Snap, and this time it's TikTok. So TikTok is really interesting because will it even be there?
Well, that's so when I show this because Wave is a great platform. You cannot do it on the Quest. You got to get it in Steam. It's for PC or PC VR. So with the Quest, you can plug it in with Quest with the link. You can go. But I'm curious about this because I don't see this event promoted in the platform. They have quite a few events. In fact, there's lots of concerts always coming up in Wave. I don't see this one in Wave. I have a feeling that Wave is starting to go into like the Travis Knight Fortnite concert space because everyone believes that's a huge VR success. Of course, we know that was not a VR event. And I feel like the John Legend was kind of as well. I don't even know if you could see, I mean, the 99% of people saw it outside of VR, which is fine. That's not to discredit that that's how you do these commercially today.
But I've got this. Please, go ahead.
So, but I mean, if The Weeknd in this case, if The Weeknd is not even performing in the platform, they're just using their tools to create an experience, an animated music video that has 3D space that you can move around in it, presumably. Well, actually, no, if they're putting it on TikTok, no, it's just a video. Yeah, I mean, so I'm curious. I really don't know what to make of it. It's a very big deal and something we should watch, but it may be a big deal for some reasons that I'm not that excited about, which could be this
in other words,
they
might be making another virtual event that's just virtual, meaning it's on screen, but it's not a 3D. And this is, again, my pet peeve. It's like, can you guys stop, like the Tomorrowland event? Can you stop making 2D events and saying that they're 3D? Can you stop, like Untitled, you have to scroll around with your thumbs, but you can't actually physically be present. The idea of presence is everything, and being in these beautiful spaces is everything. And that's why when it comes to the Wave, they're doing amazing stuff, and they've got super partnerships. I mean, this is an important company. This is one to watch. They just got, several $100 million in funding, and so, they can really do a lot. It's going to be interesting to see what they want to do and where they invest that money and their efforts. What else is up? We have the
big one that all three of us have something to look forward to here. We have Venice VR, the VR component of the Venice Film Festival, which is now happening purely digitally. There's no physical event now. So, I mean, I know
it's got
you guys.
Because in July they said they were still having it, and that was like.
Yeah, I know that. I heard that, but I understood it. Yeah, as of.
Wow.
Mm-hmm. So what they're doing, they've announced the long list. You can't, to my knowledge, you can't get tickets yet. The website I went to, the tickets, it doesn't seem like it's for this year yet. So just keep checking that. It's going to be the beginning of next month. But they've announced a huge list of artists, and we're going to be talking a bit more about it. Let me go ahead and make sure that everyone can still see this, and by re-beaming this.
And then afterwards, we can also have Michel Relac, who is the Venice VR director. We can invite him to talk to us about it, because I spoke with him a couple times this past summer. He came on 2 of my shows where we had them on LinkedIn, and he was talking about how they had conceived of Venice VR 2 years ago, and they just made it its own separate festival. So I really embrace the fact that they had the vision to declare that their fair was going to be in VR, and that they've been working towards this for 2 years. Tribeca and Cannes just kind of got on board really recently, and they pulled it off in was it VR? Oh gosh, I get them all confused in a moment. But they pulled it off really well last. They did it Museum of Other Realities.
Yeah.
And so was part of Tribeca. But Tribeca, they saw a huge increase in the number of people who were actually able to see the assets. I've been there for 3 years in a row, and even as a journalist, and I go 5 days a week, I don't get a chance to see all the assets. So this is a huge opportunity for them to increase revenue if they do it in VR. So I think it's a great opportunity to demonstrate to the industry that this can work.
Yeah. So we'll be talking about Venice VR over the next few weeks, each show. It's a big deal to address, and there's a lot to talk about there.
And the quality of work is going to be outstanding.
So we have a couple upcoming events that we just draw a little attention to. Today, I think we have Oktoberfest in Altspace, for those who are interested in checking that out after the show.
Virtual beer.
They also have, what is it? I can't.
The weekend, the weekend virtual concert.
Oh, that's right. That's right. Maker competition in Neos. If anyone is familiar with Neos as a different platform, there's apparently a month-long maker competition. They do a lot of making events because they have really powerful creative tools over there. So if you're looking to test out a platform, they don't support the Quest right now, a standalone Quest, so you got to have a PC VR. But that's a really active space for creation right now, as is Rec Room. But Neos is even just has a different set of tools. Yeah, and then we have Venice VR coming. So
we want to add and then we want to make sure that also. So before we open up questions, I want to make sure that everybody has a chance to see our links, so that if you want to come join us for specific things, I'm also going to let you know how you can see Burning Man, because we're going to go this afternoon, and we want to make sure that you guys can get access, because that should be super trippy. It has been designed by a company that really gets VR, so I think this is one of those things to watch, because I think this could be the groundbreaking thing. We just need a couple of those to really make VR really take off. So please join the XR Creatives meetup. That's all you have to Google is XR Creatives, and then join up. And then I'll send you, like, once a week, I send an update and a reminder of our updates and what's happening. So please join the XR Creatives. And if you're on Discord, we have a Discord for this show. Just look up the Spatialand Week in VR, and we'll be happy to, like, if you troubleshoot, if you have any difficulties getting in something, you're having difficulties connecting into a world, let us know, because we want to make sure that this is a community and we get to check some cool stuff out. All right, so are we good for questions?
Yeah, let's go
ahead. All right, that's it from us.
And,
let's hear some questions. I see the doctor's got his hand up.
Doctor. All right, so I think people can talk now. Anyone want to give that a try?
The good doctor has.
Hello.
Hey, welcome.
Thank you very much. Great presentation.
Thank you.
I just had a question. When on this stuff with Black Rock City, can you know when it's going to be the event?
Well, we're going in right after this, but we've been invited, so I don't know.
Maybe someone.
Yeah. Does anybody know? Yeah.
Do you know when?
I don't know. That was this question I was going to ask you.
Well, we're going to find out today, because I'm going in with one of the people who's affiliated with the show, and we're going to post it on the meetup. So please, I'll let you know as soon as I find out. Hopefully today.
I mean, they talk all the time about the event, but they don't know the event.
Yeah.
Well, we're talking about the upcoming event, and that's why we're going to see it, and we'll get back to you as soon as possible, and we'll review it next week. But we'll let you know how you can access it. It should be running all week.
Okay. And you, sir, and blue in the back.
That's green with no pants.
Yeah. So the official opening I heard yesterday was going to be in a couple of weeks for the public. So
okay.
you guys are getting the early preview, I think.
Oh, okay. Because I'm in LA and everyone's having these like little previews. So all right, so we'll give you the sneak preview next week then. If we can't invite you in, but we'll do our best. If we can find a way to get you in, we certainly will. And if not, we'll give you the sneak preview and details into how you can see it when it does happen.
Just open the back door and we'll all sneak in.
Okay, yeah, why not?
Julie's back. Yeah, welcome back, Julie.
Hey, Julie.
That sounds illegal.
Any questions or comments about stuff?
Any other questions? If not,
wait.
I forgot what they were. I was getting connection issues. A few times.
No, basically, anything events that you've seen or you've liked. Reginald, do you have a question?
This is a question for Michael. I went to the Museum of Other Realities to try to go to that event, and so this might be a UI problem here in general about this kind of thing. I've never been there before, so I went down there. I saw a bunch of avatars milling around, and then there was a keypad there, and they gave me a number which was alphanumeric, and I thought, oh, I can't enter this here. So then I wandered down to the display. Came back a little while later and everybody was gone. And then I went to the auditorium. There was nothing there because I figured that. So I don't know how you were supposed to get in there. Can you comment about that?
Yeah. So Museum of Other Realities has a curious UI, which is it's not on you. I've never seen another platform that has a UI that's not part of you. It's on the central map panel, and you cannot talk to anyone. Unless you're either friends with them or you're in they call it a shard, because everyone's kind of like this crystalline type of form. So you join a communication channel, but if you don't do that, you can't hear anybody. So you have to meet up with people or like respond to an invite that you may get. And sometimes the people are quite proactive. They send you all these invites, but you don't know them. So they're usually just people saying, hey, like be my friend, or hey, join my room or something. It's not the most intuitive interface. We had one of our friends, so I went early. About 20, 30 minutes. And I saw them all setting up. I went and saw all the spaces, and I saw people around, and I saw people that I knew because I know their names. It says their names and stuff. But they're working, and so I couldn't like communicate with them directly. And to be honest, it's like we're going back to what I said. Like it's worth seeing, but it didn't necessarily wow me. I left after 20 minutes before it even started. So because there was a video thing, and I just said I don't want to see like a presentation. You know, I want to see the art, and I'd like to talk. They had another room, I think, which is the auditorium room.
Yes.
And there were people up on the stage, and there was a video and stuff. And I know a couple other people in our group had problems finding people. So in all fairness, I just decided beforehand I wasn't interested in doing that. I was going to see the experience, and I was going to meet them while they were, you know, with their actual work. And if they weren't, once they're on stage, for me, you know, it's ironic because we're on we're sitting up on some type of stage, but like that, I wasn't like the biggest fan of going in, and because the thing was, you could not talk to them. The people on stage were on
I couldn't even see them. I couldn't. The auditorium was empty because I assume there was an instance that was opened up for people who somehow were admitted, and so I couldn't even see that.
Wow.
Very odd.
No, it
Yeah,
should've
I
been.
mean, he did say.
Just to wrap
Robin
it up,
did say.
This
They
is
did
not
say that there
helping
were some
the other people
difficulties
here.
the first day, so it depended on when you went in. I'm gonna go check it out. Like I think they had a huge volume of people, so
But-
it might have been that.
But the issue was the art is there for a long period of time, but that presentation was just a one-off. That was just happening once. So like,
Right.
if you missed it, you missed that.
Yeah.
So yeah,
Sorry.
we've had the team, we've had the founder come on to our events that we do, because we organize events every week where we look at these platforms, and sometimes we actually talk with the founders. And you know, they're a small team, and I think they've grown beyond what their initial plan was. So they are adapting very quickly to have these big events. But I know in ConXR, people told us, yeah, it's a problem to connect with people, to find people. You sometimes, like I remember, I was sometimes getting, like there were these people, and then I was getting information about shards, and I would say, okay, I'll join it. I got an invite, I'll join it, but I still can't hear them. I'm still not part of it. I was getting invites to something that I was actually still not being accepted to.
That's so frustrating.
And that was some of my first experiences. Yeah, so I've had great experience going in with people I know, where we just say, hey, we're going to meet here, and I'm looking at you, and we're going to get this sorted out. You know, we're going to be friends. But yeah, in terms of like meeting different people, or even finding like where some specific thing is meant to happen,
Yeah.
you're not the first person to have that experience, unfortunately. So I mean, everyone going in there.
I already had that experience too.
Yeah.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah, we're going to try to. That's why, I mean, it would be cool for us to be able to go in as a group. This is the frustration we're going to see as each one of these headset makers starts to create different silos. And we forgot to mention the XR, the Peter Cho thing. XR.
XR what?
Yeah, that I don't know that may not have a lot of time to bring up that subject. It's a new headset, and it has some exclusive content tied with that headset. So.
Yeah. So in other words, it's kind of like the Oculus that has its own ecosystem, except it's a different headset with its different ecosystem. And then, so we're going to see a lot of this like kinks for the next couple of years as the battle continues. But unfortunately, we're the ones who are going to be. We've got to decide by forcing ourselves onto these platforms. But there are a lot of bugs, obviously.
Yeah, of course.
Squish 'em.
Questions?
Any last questions before we go on to our next events? Actually, it seems like a busy day here in Altspace.
Oh, we got a couple more minutes. Doctor, did you want to say anything, or our new friend in the back?
Holden was wanting to say something, but he's a bit.
Hi, Kyla.
I thought he was going to say something.
Well, listen, it's so great that you guys were up here. I want to thank Julia Walsh for joining us. It was a fantastic presentation. Thank you for sharing with us the insights on Untitled and the future of art fairs. And we'd love to have you back. Thank all of you for coming on a Sunday from around the world. It was such a cool crowd, and we look forward to getting to know you. Please make sure to sign up to one of either the XR Creatives Meetup, the Discord. Come back and hang out with us. Say hi to Michael or me on any social media. Share. Yeah.
Just had a question. Sorry. No, like VR chat. No. Sorry.
Hello.
The Black Rock City, the Birdie Man.
Hello.
There's a kid. Can you please?
Hi,
respect-
I'm new.
Hello.
Sorry, I'm just new.
All right, so just chill.
Hi.
Yeah, I was just wondering, like, there's a lot of nudity, like there's not a
Wait,
nude stuff that goes on Birdie Man. How are you guys gonna control underage and people getting in? Because it's a lot of like it's a lot of adult stuff that goes on this. Like if you see Burning Man in action, there's a lot of people naked, and
Well,
drugs and stuff.
that's a very good point. Is it because
sir.
how much can go into a VR Burning Man? So I actually attended VR Burn in the Wave in November, I think it was last year, which was attempted to be it was a a music art experience that was following the aesthetics of Burning Man. I don't think it was not officially linked, I think, in any way, but it was great, but it was not Burning Man because it was just music performances with some custom-made visuals. It was great. It was great fun. But I think I've heard a lot of people say you cannot translate the experience of Burning Man into VR.
Do you want to know
In
the funniest thing I
totality.
saw? Speaking of Burning Man in VR, the Smithsonian was showing all these things as if they were like museum relics, completely out of context. So you would see this huge sculpture that had previously been in the desert right in front of you in this like antiseptic sort of fake museum context, as if you just by pressing your hand on a button, and they would make it come up in 3D. Now, why would I want to do that headset? I do not know. So again, it's like, some things just don't happen in VR, and we don't need to be quite so literal about taking a museum setting and doing it like some sort of Cooper Hewitt interactivity. It doesn't make sense to me. What do you think? Any thoughts, Julia?
Your audio is breaking up. No, can you hear me now?
Oh.
Yeah, we hear you. Yeah.
Oh, you can hear me. Okay, great.
There's been audio issues all day.
Yeah, it's an interesting question. Is what is the best way to exhibit art when you're in virtual reality? There's so many different options. It doesn't have to be a white wall cube. So it's something to think about, and I don't know that I have the answers to that, but I do think, like, for that art fair was actually a good example of it's a little bit boring to show it in that context. I feel like there's so many more exciting ways that you could still create sales and have social interactions.
The question.
Yeah.
There was a question about the question, and we were basically talking about different ways of representing art and also experiences, because again, if you're going to have an experience like Tomorrowland, like Burning Man, you need to also think about like the magic of VR and all of the tools at your disposal to create something magnificent. And I think that's a really great point to kind of wrap on is like, we're going to be covering a lot of the best practices in the Spatialverse, and we would like to, invite you back to come check out some other stuff. We're going to actually go and check out Burning Man now. It's 2:02. So we'd like to thank you so much for joining us today. And please, again, hit us up on XR Creatives in Discord. Michael, you want to say?
And thanks for having me, too.
Yeah. Well,
Thank
it was
you,
our pleasure, Julie. Thank you very much for coming, and thank you everyone for joining. Yeah. Hope to see you next week at our next show.
Bye. Thank you so much.